Hello, Joel Tadman here from Golf Monthly, and as you can see I've got the new Srixon Z785 driver in my hands, and I've been testing it on the range here at West Hill Golf Club and also at Foresight Sports HQ this morning to get some dry ball data with premium golf balls. Before we come on to the performance, we'll touch on the technology very briefly. Obviously, Srixon known for producing tour authentic better player clubs. Maybe they're a brand you've not really heard of. We'd love to hear from you. Have you heard of Srixon? Do you consider Srixon when thinking about buying new clubs? And is that going to change maybe in the next few months? We'd love to hear from you. Srixon, with this design, have implemented a couple of major changes. This is more of a revolution than evolution compared to the previous Z765 driver. You may remember the previous generation, you had two driver models to choose from, but in this driver you've only got one to choose from, and that's this 785. And as a result, Srixon kind of needed to design it to suit a wider spectrum of players. The way they've done that is by implementing this new cut face. So they've used an exotic premium titanium alloy here. It's a lot stronger. It's allowed them to make the face a little bit thinner. It's going to give you more ball speed. It's actually 10% thinner than the previous driver face. Another big change Srixon have made here is with the crown. It's now, as you can see, it's a carbon composite crown. So that's saving an awful lot of weight in the area. It's making them able to position weight more in the perimeter of the club head, lower down, deeper, to make it much more forgiving compared to the previous generation. So the MRI has increased compared to the previous 765. For me, you've also got a much more cutting edge look here behind the ball. You can see you've got the weight there, low and back. Srixon say this is actually a neutral shot shape, although it does look like it's actually positioned more towards the heel. And you've got adjustability here on the hosel, so you can adjust the loft and the lie angle as well. We'll come on to that a bit later in the video. But the first thing to talk about is the looks of this driver down by the ball. It has a much larger profile than the previous 765 driver. The kind of patchwork of the carbon composite on the crown is obvious. We've got a new alignment mark there near the leading edge and a much darker face with no grooves. So actually, to be fair, this is less easy to align than the previous generation because it had a lighter face with white full grooves on there. But generally speaking, there isn't much to dislike about the look of this driver down by the ball. It's a nice shape, sets up really nice, sits very square and very confidence inspiring down by the ball. So like I said, I tested this driver earlier this morning at Foresight Sports HQ using the GC Quad launch monitor and premium golf balls. A couple of different shafts that I tried. We'll come on to that in a second, and also the spec that we tested in as well. So let's have a look at the data to see what kind of performance we got. So I've got my iPad here with all the relevant numbers from my testing that I did earlier of both the new and old Srixon Z drivers. So set some base numbers with the 765 using the Miyazaki tour issue shaft. Now this is a bit complicated international flex code on here, so it's 5677. So essentially what that means is it's kind of softer in the butt section than it is in the tip section. Basically 7 is extra stiff and 5 is stiff, so moving down through the shaft it's stiffer towards the tip than it is towards the butt. So base numbers with this driver just in 9.5 degrees of loft. You'll see ball speed of 149 is down for where I normally am, but just to kind of justify that, I had a bit of a heavy gym session yesterday and I'm actually aching a little bit from that, so apologies. So maybe don't compare these numbers to other reviews I've done. We'll just have a look at a like for like here with the new and old driver in this video. So ball speed 149, launching at 15.6, very healthy indeed. Spinning nice and low actually, just at 1900. Pretty good ball flight, 37 yards, peaking an average carry of 266 yards, which is very good. If you've seen my previous review of this old, the 765 driver, you'll know that I was very impressed with all of it really, the looks, the feel and the performance. Then I moved into the 785 driver and used the Project X hazardous shaft that I was provided. Now it does say mid spin on it, so off the bat, although I did get more ball speed and a similar launch, you'll notice the spin was quite high, the flight was quite high, and I wasn't getting the carry I was expecting. So switched it down to 8.5 degrees of loft and got similar results really, a lot of spin. So I've actually reverted back to this shaft in the new head. So this driver head here, this new Srixon Z85 driver at 8.5 degrees of loft in the same shaft, as the previous Z765 driver. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful, all these different numbers. So 8.5 degrees of loft in the Miyazaki. You'll see that the ball speed went up from 149 to 152, so a fairly big jump there. I would say I didn't actually delete many shots here on this testing. I had a couple of absolute horrors that I did delete, but I did try to include some slight mishits in there as well. You notice the launch angle is very similar. Spin was slightly higher, but pretty similar at 2,153. Slightly higher ball flight, 3 yards higher than the previous generation, even though it's actually lofted down by 1 degree. So I thought that was quite interesting. And you'll notice the average carry distance went up by a couple of yards to 268. So across the board, more ball speed, certainly more distance from this head compared to the previous generation. You notice my longest shot with the new Z785 was 271 yards compared to 267 yards with the previous generation driver. Those 3 hits I hit with the previous generation driver I thought were pretty centered, good hits. So some minor improvements there on the new Srixon Z785 driver. There are some other changes that I'll talk you through. The looks of this driver is very different to the previous generation. It's much larger, inspires much more confidence, but because it has a carbon fibre crown, it has a much different sound and feel. So it's much more of a thud, it's more of a softer sound and arguably more powerful. There are some people who prefer a firmer feeling driver, so that's up to you to decide, but for me it does have a very distinct difference in sound and feel that you may well like. The adjustability on the hosel is a little bit complicated. When you take the head off, you'll notice there's an awful lot of writing there on the hosel, so it's probably worth getting a custom fitting. And you'll probably see a much bigger jump in performance from generation to generation should you go through that custom fitting process. Obviously I wasn't sent the right shaft for me in this new driver model. I think with the shaft offerings they've got available this time around, you really do have a greater potential to improve your performance with this driver. And I think this is really going to be up there with a lot of the big boys in the driver market. And when you consider it comes in at just £349 for a carbon composite driver, you've got a cut face, you've got adjustability on the hosel, you've got premium shaft offerings, there really is an awful lot of value for money here with this driver. We're going to be doing some comparison testing in the near future to see exactly how this driver compares to the big boys of Titleist, Ping, TaylorMade and Callaway. So don't worry, watch this space, a video is coming. But my initial impressions are that it certainly has the potential to compete with those drivers. There's some gains to be had here with the new generation compared to the previous generation. It looks a lot better, it feels and sounds a lot more powerful as well, and there's an awful lot of value here to be had given the relatively modest price point. So hope you enjoyed that review. Thanks for watching as always. Click the like button if you haven't liked it already. Make sure you comment on the video. Are Srixon a brand that you're going to be thinking about when buying a new driver in the future? Love to hear from you, but for now, from West Hill Golf Club, it's goodbye.